Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a unique convergence of industry minds from the world of PC technology. I'm Jasper from LIAN, and today we're honored to be joined by a variety of guests. To my right is Jameson Chen. He's the CEO of LIAN since 2017. To my right over here, we have Pedro, the founder and head moderator of the subreddit PC Master Race. And to Pedro's right, we're joined by Justin Robbie of Robbie Tech. And last but not least, we have Stuart Tonks from GGF Events. Today's roundtable isn't just about discussing products and current and future trends. It's also about the stories behind them, the challenges faced, and how we're shaping the industry. Beginning with the O11 Vision Back Connect here. Back Connect PC cases and motherboards were among some of the more popular products this year during CES. This concept is special because it's dependent on both the case itself and the motherboard. So for my first question, I'd like to direct it to Jameson. As the CEO of LIAN, a brand famously known for its PC cases, what's your take on Back Connect as a concept?
Like every case has a backbeds areas that manage cable, so it does make a lot of sense. Like you don't have to route the cable through the front. Everything is hidden and directly connected to the back, and it's easy to manage in that way. So I think it's a good idea. But I think as a brand, we are pretty slow on adopting this idea because I wasn't really sure during last Computex, like how this motherboard manufacturer are going to react or how they are going to ship the products. How soon would that be? Because this idea requires a lot of others manufacturer like power supplies or like case manufacturer or motherboard manufacturer to work hand in hand to create standards so that everyone that buy the motherboard, can find a good case to fit that. Also like as a case manufacturer, we have to know like the holes that we open for the motherboard back connects, are they the correct spot? So we are slow on that. I have to get more sample from the motherboard manufacturer to have the board to really calibrate or really design the correct spot for this connector.
And I mean, no one wants to see cables. No one loves how cables look, I guess. Not just in PCs, but in all areas of life. There are ways to make them look pretty, but I think most people will just want to see a very clean build. And in something like this, I think it makes a lot of sense. And the industry has been moving a lot towards it. I mean, this CES, we saw a lot of interest in this concept and a lot of interest in finding different ways to get cases, to have components, and to not being able to see wires, which, I mean, it's aesthetically pleasing, I guess. It's all about, I think, there's a big pro, of course, so the aesthetics. Now, what I would really want to see is not have it just be like proprietary. I wanted to see like having some universality to it so that we could build and we don't have to be limited what hardware we can get, and to make something that works on pretty much all cases and all hardware.
I agree with you. I think one of the things that we kind of came out with is that you do need a standard, and the other thing too is you need good cases. I think one of the reasons that we saw kind of Project Stealth pop up and then disappear was because the case itself was lacking in terms of its ability to actually manage builds. So for me, the one thing that I'm excited about is when you see manufacturers like LIAN coming out with something that, looking at this can support both like normal and also back connect. At the same time, we've got the radiators to deal with the hottest components and the support to basically build something that looks beautiful. And I know Pedro really likes this because it's the PCMR one, but I mean, it is the right kind of case to have a back connect, beautiful, cableless looking build. So yeah, I think that what we needed was case manufacturers and we needed a standard, and I feel like there's now a big enough push that we can see that. What do you think, Stuart?
Yeah, I think so. First off, the case, perfect choice for it because you can see the top, you can see the side, especially this case with the glass at the top, no restrictions at all. I guess there are going to be a few factors that might split the community about this, like at what cost are we going to have to pay to get a motherboard with the full back connectors, a case with the back connector support. I'm assuming the cost really isn't going to be much difference because you're actually cutting away more material technically. It just comes down to R&D and getting the support from the manufacturers for the motherboards that you make sure you have that compatibility for that. Some other areas I would probably think would be with the community split between, as you said earlier, people like to see cables, and especially when you have some of those more enthusiasts who like to theme their builds, whether it's cyberpunk, anything out there, cables really add that aesthetic that can really bring a PC to life. So with a PC with the back connectors, you're just not going to get that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Some people just like to add that extra little bling, and that's where the cables do come into show.
And I think this is about option, right? Like people like what they like, and this is giving people another option and freedom to express it. I do feel like now with especially like with the ASUS implementation of the GPU, you'll have more area to actually play with underneath the GPU for theming and stuff like that.
Continuing off the idea of hiding away the plugs and cables for better aesthetics, we also have the Galahad 2 LCD Shift AIO. Do you guys think this is a great innovation, or is this something unnecessary?
It's such a simple concept, but overall it makes a lot of difference. Like the tubes being able to hide it on a build, especially, I mean, I guess that's the theme nowadays, being able to create cleaner builds and hiding the stuff that you want. I also love the cap, the fact that you can hide the anesthetic screws right here. That's another thing no one really wants to see. And just being able to route them in a way that's pleasing to you with the shift, I think can make a lot of difference on how you can create a build. And as always, there's the freedom to use the clips or not. So if you prefer not to, or prefer to extend them and see more of the cable or less, I'm all for it. Just create stuff and create cleaner builds. That's super cool.
I have to agree with Pedro. Like for the most part, I think one of the things is that what this does is, people buy expensive motherboards, like from ASUS, like especially the Evangelion, where you don't want to cover that VRM on the left side, or you basically have expensive RAM like Dominator, so you don't want to have tubes covering that. Now you can basically have them run to the middle. And the other thing too is that I think, especially with so many builders on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, that they see these clean builds, people want to replicate those. And the thing that I love about this, especially being able to cover the caps, is that you're giving novice and new builders an opportunity to figure out how to hide the cables and the tubes in a way that when they get done, they're just proud of the work that they've done. And that's, I think, one of the things that I get so many in comments in my YouTube videos is people are like, I want it to look so clean, and this gives them the tool set that they need to be able to do that.
So I look at the Galahad AIOs and the recent launch that the ones that we had on the market right now has this what we call a rotary fitting design. So I relook at it and I think like this thing has potential, right? But it can help you to route the tubes a lot easier, but it doesn't really make it a lot cleaner than the ones that without the rotary fitting. So I was starting to think about, is there any ways that I can, use the space a lot more efficient so that the tubes can be hidden in some way so that it come out really clean. And then I relook at a lot of the case today, it's like all the 360 mounting for AIOs are become wider, right? So when you see that the spots that can mount 360 AIO, usually those spots can also accommodate at least 140 fan, right? So with that in mind, I figure out a design where we can actually give a little bit of tricks to have a clips to use these rotary fitting ideas to polish it so that you can come out with as clean as what we see today.
Now, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, the Edge series power supply units, another product that has been completely reimagined. What are your thoughts?
I mean, this is a dual chamber case's dream, I would say. The T-shape. I do love the USB hub here, because at least for me, every time I'm building something, and most motherboards come with two, even very high-end motherboards tend to come with two USB headers. And nowadays, everything is linking up to the USB. So now we get at least five. So that's pretty cool. For me, I try to, this is different from PC Builder to PC Builder, but I always try to put the PSU first on a build. I just like it. I think it's neater. I like to do the cable management first and then connect to the PSU. With something like this makes my job a lot easier. So you can just slot it in and you can work super easily without having to concern yourself about where to put the cables, and then to shift it back to the case after you're finished makes my life a lot easier, I think. What do you guys think?
Originally, when I saw it, it took me a while to understand why, right? And then once I saw it inside of the 011, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. And I was like, for dual chamber, there's a ton of flexibility that now exists, right? In terms of being able to work on your rig. Like that's the part that is, like you and I were having a discussion even earlier, like being able to, like, when you go in there, you're like, oh, I need to plug something in. You have to remove the whole top row just to get to stuff on the back. I mean, on the bottom. And now all of a sudden it's very easy to go through there. The other thing too is I was a little worried about, like, well, thick cables, but then you guys thought of that too. Like the cables are nicely sleeved, they're thin, so getting to the USB hub is going to be easy, so which is nice. So I'm like, okay, so I don't have any issues there. And then the last thing there is that there are particular components that don't deal well with USB hubs. So then you added in basically the signal booster. So now even that issue has been taken care of. So now I've got 4 slots on no matter what motherboard.
This one I really do like. So this is just a bunch of 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you can put this down somewhere out of the way, and say you have 2 controllers, a hub, something else they can just plug in, and you don't have a bunch of cables. This one here is really good as well. It just essentially splits off 2. It's basically turning 2 separate SATA cables into one. It's just running them off into 2 areas. Say you got 2 fan controllers somewhere else, you have another controller up top. This will run up to that. Now you can do it differently. Now you don't have to worry about grabbing your cables first, install the PSU, then you can go the other way. You can go from your motherboard to your PSU. You can go from your EPS to your PSU. So you can start routing and cable managing from the front side to the back, rather than the back side to the front, and plugging in your 24-pin towards the end, and then your EPS. So you can get your cable runs much nicer.
I mean, we have been doing cases, fans, and then so many others are telling us when are going to see the ATX power supply. I hold on to the idea of releasing a power supply for a while. The reason being, like, was kind of hard for me to think of an innovation in the power supply areas, because I think if we're going to launch a power supply, it's going to be just another power supply, you know? But I think the time has been changing, right? So, I mean, back in the days, I'm the ones that only doing this 011 dual chamber case. Others don't do, right? But now, since last year, especially this year, we saw lots of dual chamber case, right? So it gives me idea of like this kind of stuff start to make sense, right? Like if I have a power supply that is targeted towards this dual chamber case, dual chamber category.
During our discussions, we've been talking about the O11 series a lot, right? So the O11 series are cases wildly popular among users around the world, frequently used as showcase builds. And once Lian have these showcase builds, and on the other hand, we have builds like the Sub 1. Can Jameson elaborate more on how Sub 1 fits into Lian Li's product lineup?
The Sub 1 was taking a completely different route compared to the 011. I would say 011 is more about showcasing and then having so many different mounting spots for radiator and fans. Like it can help help user to create their own unique build by populating fans, radiator to make custom loops. So it's really meant to be a DIY showcase build, right? Whereas the Sub 01 was taking a completely different philosophy. So this is like to cramp your biggest components, your ATX motherboard standard, ATX PSU, and then the big GPU. So the GPU can actually accommodate 4 slots, 390 lanes MX, and then 360 AIOs. And then because it come with pre-equipped fans, and then because the air tunnels has been refined so that once you populate all your components in, the cooling is already taken care of. The front mesh, intaking air for GPU, exhausting everything through the back, and you couldn't even see it, right? So the air tunnel is already being taken care of by our testing. This is a similar result compared to the case has been very popular, the 216.
Yeah, I think that there is a underserved audience, actually. I think there is, and that's the same ones, the creator audience, the ones who don't like everything to look like a unicorn literally pooped on everything, you know what I mean? And then the thing is, that's the, like every time I've done like blacked out cases, right? There are people who's like, thank God you didn't throw in a ton of RGB. I'm not saying you can't with this, and there will be absolutely be people, it's like, it's funny you would say, you don't have to replace the fans. people love to put RGB everywhere. It's like, look on the back, I'm getting underglow on the back of my wall, right? Because I stuck RGB fans in the back. But the thing is that, throwing a ProArt Creator build in here or something like that, people will absolutely do this. And I feel like there are going to be people who still want to showcase their parts with the tempered glass in the front, but they don't want to have a ton of RGB. So they're just showing the GPU. It looks nice and clean. Throw some golden black build. I have lots of ideas to make something like this still look good, but at the same time also not make it super blingy and know that I'm getting performance, right? Because that's the other thing too, is a lot of times when people add a ton of RGB, they're actually losing performance. And so in this case, they can have high performance and still have something that look clean and looks nice, right? So I mean, I don't think that this is a PC. I think this is something that is for an audience that not a lot of people actually get opportunity.
I think I think there's definitely an audience for this. I kind of agree with you on that. And I don't think it's just a creator crowd. I think there's a lot of people who are very into PCs and very into spec'd out PCs who can look amazing, such as this one, but they don't want to go through all that trouble of building everything from scratch. Like you mentioned, going after what fans to fit, what orientation, and being able to get a case that is very performance oriented, but still looks really, really good with the side glass, and not having to worry about that, just having to worry about, like you mentioned as well, like a nice looking motherboard, a nice looking GPU that, I mean, it looks really, really dope in the front like that. It really is an eye popper when you look at it. I think that kind of audience will look at it and be very interested in this, because it's people who, they're not really into getting it pre-built because they think, I kind of want to build something, but I don't want to go through the trouble of going through all the specs and all the minute details of something like that.
So great, we already talked about most of the key products this time for our Digital Expo this year. But I'm sure you guys still have a lot of questions left for Jameson. So now would be a good time to fire away.
Okay, so I want to talk about DO11. I mean, DO11, I would say, is probably the most influential case in modern PC building. And this is kind of a three-part question. Throughout the years, we've seen a lot of launches being clearly influenced by your design choices for DO11. And this CES, that was very prevalent. So everyone seemed to be very inspired, to say the least, by your designs. Now, three-part question. How does it feel to have paved the way in this sense? Have you reached the limits of what is possible with this case? And is this something you want to continue betting on, or do you want to create something new for the future?
So answer to the first question about creating the trend. So it feels bad when I see the first inspired case, and it feels normal when I see fifth case that has the same similar design, and it feels proud when I see 20 or several of it. It means like we have been doing the right things because we have been doing this 11 and so many different iteration since 2018. And then it started to make me feel like, because like when I start with 2018, we only have one models, which is called the 11 Dynamic, right? And since then, in 2019, we created XL, and in 2020, we created Mini. It's because at that time, like no others are doing this. So that if people's or audience wants a bigger version of what I already have, then I'm the one that have to do this XL. I'm the one have to make a smaller one, which is Mini, right? So it gets to the point where, because you're seeing so many different iteration, the ones with curved glass, the ones with, I don't know, front mesh or whatever, like the more that I start to redesign this, it more to feel like the market probably already has this. Like the meaning of me feeling the gap of this dual chamber case become less important. But I think a lot of the case on the market today, it's like the dual chamber case, still missing some of the key points that we originally pushed with this dual chamber case. For example, so when we start designing this case, it's because we want to target it more towards water cooling. So especially back in 2018, we really pushing this idea to have 360 360 radiators in one single case. That was the idea. Yeah. And then the other idea is when we pushed to the eval was we won't, because then people start adapting this 011 case, and then it started to make me feel like every build does look kind of the same. That's why we're pushing the evo and trying to have more modularity to have the builds to look different.
You guys have done an awful lot in the hardware space, and now the thing is with like the LIAN PSU, you have the uni fans, you have the case. There's a you guys almost have an entire ecosystem, but a large part of the ecosystem is also the software. So where is the innovation in the software side? What are the things that you guys are doing to push it there, specifically given everything that you guys now have?
So I think one thing very important is that if you have more of our device, we has to have ways to make every device line, that every RGB device lightning kind of, like correlated or like response to each one. And then I think one of the company that I noticed that has achieved this is Signal RGB. So I can give you a hint that this year we're going to collab with Signal RGB. It's already in progress, that their version is going to embed into our L Connect. So user will have opportunity to actually use Signal RGB feature within L Connect. Yeah. And the other I will point out is that, because I get this feedback all the time, like they're saying like, oh, if I use one of your RGB products, I need a controller, and then I need a second one, a second controller. The more controllers that keep them kind of like building some hassle to managing all these cables and stuff like that. And it's kind of like losing my original initiative to, to cut cables from the UniFan, right? So we will this year trying to like unify the system so that the user only need one to power all. Yeah, yeah.
All right, what I have for you, the question is, when I grew up many, many years ago, probably 20 or so years ago, LIAN definitely wasn't as dominant as you guys are now. There was no PCO11, nothing like that. But when I grew up with your chassis, it was all aluminum. You had the massive one that comes to mind is the V2000, all aluminum. I'm not talking about the nice polished brushed aluminum you have now. Some of the OG guys out there that are watching this will probably know it was just either the black for the exterior and then inside was just the bare silver shiny aluminum. I want to know your thought process on, will we ever see something like that again? I know cost is going to be very high for those type of cases. I'm not saying something the size of those big cases, but seeing more something like a PCO11 style in something in a full aluminum. I know you're saying something before about it's hard for the manufacturing process for that. I just want to know your thoughts.
Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of background story, how this has been transitioned. So I joined on board on D&D since 2017. And then back then, like my father was the leader of this company. And then back in the day, we still like owns a factory in Taiwan. And then because himself also wanted to have a distinctive position out of the markets, so he chose to have this like full aluminum chassis. It is very expensive to make, but it gives its specific distinctive role within the PC case industry.
Because back then, every LIAN Lee case was aluminum.
Exactly,
Is that
it
right?
was.
Like every single one.
Yeah, that was something that he insists to do. Yeah, so that every product, doesn't matter is it big or small or mid tower, for aluminum, and then has its own group of audience would willing to spend that much money to. It's not like he wanted to purchase that feature, but he wanted to have just the materials to be full aluminum. You know, we used to have this group of people. Or people who actually like that idea. I wouldn't say that's a huge group of people, but it does have group fans that actually love this idea. But I mean, but I would say though, like the PC market in general, like 20 years ago, or even even 15 years ago,
Yeah.
is a lot bigger than what it is today. I mean, we are actually in a shrinking industry, because we have, laptop, mobile device, and stuff. A lot of things that can replace PC nowadays. Well, obviously, like now today's topic is always about like gaming. Maybe we have a little bit about AI or stuff like that, but obviously the computer is not like a necessity as before, right? So that's something that he faced as a challenge is once the overall market starts shrinking, those group of people become smaller and smaller.
Yep.
It's like when I step in, I really want to push this brand to mainstream. I think we still consider ourselves as high end, but it's a must take route that we push it to the mainstream. But I still like a lot of our design, we still wanted to keep aluminum in some places, but most of it now is more on the exterior, the aesthetic, because a lot of features that I wanted to create, it would be hard to use aluminum as a material, because some features that it does require, some special bend, and then with aluminum, it's hard. Even if it's possible, the cost is going to be a lot
Yes.
higher because you
Yep.
need aluminum is a lot more flimsy and it's not as sturdy as steel, right? So, for example, if steel can do one parts, just do tooling and then bend the shape, the aluminum you had to have like at least 3 parts to make it happen. So that's the challenges that I'm facing when I trying to, like pushing the brand towards the mainstream.
We covered new products today. We covered future trends, new concepts. We talked about a lot today. Stuart, Justin, Pedro, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as we did today. Thank you guys for coming. I guess this sums up our roundtable for today, and I hope the audiences also enjoyed the conversation.